Okay, I think we're live.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. We're on episode 70 of the Technology for Good show. It's incredible that we've gotten this far. Thanks, everyone, for your interest and for making it happen. Chris, co-host, thank you too. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, Chris Kernahan, Principal Consultant at Bluefin Solutions, and SAP Mentor and General Lover of Technology. Thank you very much for having me, Tom.
Not at all. And my name is Tom Raftery. I work for a company called Redmonk. I'm an industry analyst. And basically, on the show every week, we look at the previous week's technology news around with a particular slant or bent towards technology that helps people's lives improve. We always preface this news with a bit of, climate-related news, typically. A bit of bad news to kind of set the agenda, and then we give the good news on how technology is helping make our lives better. So, Chris, we'll start off with some of the bad news that's come up in the last week. And there's two bad news stories I wanted to highlight. We normally just stick with one, but this week there was two that I felt deserved a bit of airtime.
Yeah.
And the first talks about how new Antarctic research, and I'll just put it up on screen there so everyone can see it. The first, one second, get it on screen. There we go. So the first talks about how this new Antarctic research ups the level of sea level rise estimates. And we touched on some of this last week as well. But basically, it's more of the same. It's more bad news on that front. And the second one.
Tom, I can't see you.
Oh, you can't see the news story, or you can't see me?
I don't know if you have you reshared the news story, or are you back on your camera?
Let me go back on camera.
Yeah, I can see the news story.
You weren't able to see the news story?
No. Do you want me to try and share it, or?
Well, let me go once more and see if it works this time. Is that okay? Can you see it now?
No, I still can't. But perhaps one of our regular Twitter followers can tell us whether they see it.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. I've got that one. I've got the BBC one.
Okay, good. So this is the second of the climate stories. And basically it talks about how the current El Nino climate event is among the strongest ever. And there are 3 or 4 massive storms in the Pacific as a consequence. I say 3 or 4 because this story was on the 1st of September and it shows 3, but later in the week they showed a 4th one on another site. So the meteorological organizations are saying that this year's event is strengthening and will peak by the end of the year. The strongest El Nino on record was in 97, 98. And, lots of other news in this story basically saying that as I said, the El Nino event this year is one of the biggest ever, and there's a lot of storms happening as a consequence. One of the things that El Nino does is it picks up the hot weather in the water in the Pacific, and that causes all kinds of weather anomalies. And of course, we've been warming up the oceans. So it's no surprise that the El Nino events are getting stronger, and that this one, considering last year was the warmest year on record, and this year is on track to be even warmer, it should be no surprise that the El Nino is going to be stronger again this year.
Yeah, no, it is scary, and you can see that the Indian monsoon is 12% below normal.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely critical to farming in India and Pakistan and those types of regions. That's not good to start with, and then the storms themselves. Whenever you look at how the value, the insurance payouts and storm damage that have been done over the last number of years, it is really, really, really quite scary.
It is, and so that's the bad news stories. Climate continues to be messed up. So, having set that kind of context for the show, let's go into some of the better news.
Oh, yes.
And the first of the better news stories has to be this President Obama heading to Alaska story. So he went there this week for a couple of days and made a couple of announcements around climate change action. He went to lots of different places. Amongst other things, he renamed one of the mountains there, Mount McKinley. He renamed it to Denali, but he also declared that, and you can see it here, the United States is partly to blame for climate change, and he said it's no longer a far-off problem. It's happening here, and it's happening now. So he's kind of setting the tone for the Paris conference at the end of the year, which is good. He's saying that, you know, America is going to have to step up. He's also saying that the other countries are going to have to step up. But having said that, the contradictions have been noted because he just approved offshore oil drilling by Shell in the Arctic region. So while it's good to see him making a strong pitch for the climate, and one of the strongest he's ever made after having been elected, because he'd made a couple of strong pitches for the climate during the elections, but it's, you know, when he got elected, he rode back a little. But no, it's good to see him now making a pitch. It's just the Shell thing did kind of stick in the throat and did take from what he said a little bit.
But the interest is I saw this during the week, actually, the number of job losses that are actually happening globally across, you know, large oil companies because of the price of oil and things like that there. You know, I think he will have come under significant political pressure to allow, or to basically not to cut the knees out from under those oil companies or support them in some way. Granted, it's as you say, it's giving with one hand and taking with the other.
Yeah, I think a better support would have been, as we discussed last week, would have been to set up educational programs for oil workers to move them out of fossil fuels and into renewable industries. And for a lot of them, it wouldn't have been a big move.
Yeah, no, it would be, but that it's a longer play. You know, at the end of the day, the lobbyists don't want that. They want to see the you know, the status quo continue. So they don't want to hear about educational schemes that'll take a couple of years to get somebody retrained and into a similar paying wage job.
Yeah.
Just want that I couldn't actually see that last story, and I've had Tammy confirm that we are having problems with your sharing. So if you want me to take over sharing duties, that's not a problem.
Let's do that. So
yeah, no worries. So the next one, let me just make sure I can share it. Screen share. This one, share.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if I start talking now, that's going to disappear off screen.
Oh, sorry. Right. Yeah, that's going to be. Actually, no. If you click my screen, I think if I did, does it come back on now?
No, there's a little button at the top which says share to everyone or something like that. When you click that, then I can talk all I want, but the story stays on screen.
This is all highly technical. I don't know how this stuff works.
Back in technology.
I know. It's dreadful. It's a good. However, I manage to maintain my job. Is it in the Hangout toolbox or just the screen share?
No, in the screen share. As soon as you screen share, there's a little green box appears on mine, at least.
Yeah. No, all I get is this, and then I get your screen sharing, and then it says stop. So it does. So it doesn't give that to me. Oh well.
Okay. Well. Okay. So this story is a fascinating story because it comes from Citibank, and Citibank are, if memory serves, the third largest U.S. bank.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, if a story like this came from someone like Greenpeace, you'd kind of go, yeah, right. But coming from someone like Citibank, you kind of have to sit up and take it seriously.
Yeah.
So what Citibank are saying is that if we go on well, what Citibank did was that they carried out a study, scenario-based study, where they looked at the cost of doing climate mitigation stuff.
Yes, actions.
Thank you. Versus not doing it.
Yes.
And when they costed the not doing it versus the taking action, it turns out that the cost of not doing anything and going on a business as usual is actually more expensive than the cost of taking climate mitigating action.
Yeah.
And that would be quite counterintuitive for most people, I think. If you look at the costs themselves, they're outlined in the article there, and you can see the cost of taking zero action is $192 trillion US.
Yes.
Whereas the cost of taking action is only $190 trillion. It's not a huge difference between the two. It's 192 versus 190.
Yep.
But 190, that's a saving of $2 trillion. And this study doesn't take into account the lack of damage from the climate that would occur as a result of not taking those actions.
Exactly. This is what they call in economics an opportunity cost analysis.
Yep.
So this is classic. What is the opportunity cost? And the opportunity cost is $2 trillion of not doing anything, which is a vast sum of money. And as you rightly point out, it doesn't take that. That's just what it would cost to keep going as we go. It doesn't count the incurring costs of damage and insurance and all the rest of it that would have to be paid out. So arguably it's higher, but they obviously haven't had the ability to model that.
Yeah, I guess they wanted an apples to apples comparison, and that wouldn't have given them an apples to apples comparison. I mean, if we just look at one of the most topical stories of this week has been the refugee crisis from the Syrian refugees.
Yes.
And one of the largest significant factors causing the uprising in Syria was climate change. It was a drought in the east of Syria. Which caused a move to the cities, which caused an uprising.
Yeah.
We're going to see lots more conflicts like this occur, and lots more refugee crises occur at huge cost. And as we said, those costs have not been taken into account in this study at all.
No.
So yeah, the fact that actually working to solve the climate issue is cheaper than not.
Yeah.
It's tremendously good news, and as I say, hugely counterintuitive.
Yeah. But was that not the outcome of the Stern report a couple of years ago? Granted, it was widely debunked by a number of people. So, but the Stern report commissioned by the UK government.
Yeah, I think what he said, and he's now Lord Stern, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think what he said in his report was that as time goes by, it will cost a larger percentage of GDP to fix the problems.
That's what it is. You're right. Yeah.
So it's a slightly different take.
It is. Yeah. This is a classic economic argument. Opportunity cost is, economics 101, like, which is fantastic.
Yeah. The next story that I saw that I thought was interesting was this one on Bloomberg, talking about how fossil fuels are losing their cost advantage over solar and wind, according to the International Energy Agency. So again, if this were a report coming out of someone like Greenpeace, you'd be kind of inclined to go, yeah, right. But again, this is the International Energy Agency, who have a lot more credibility in this space. And they're saying, we've talked in the last few shows about how solar costs are plummeting, but wind is also coming down, not as fast, but it is also coming down.
Yeah.
And we're now getting to the point where both solar and wind they have a cost advantage over fossil fuels, which is tremendous news, given that most new developments will be based on cost. Most new generation would be based on cost, and it's important for the climate that they be the cheaper option.
Well, it's fascinating. The average, it was 500 per megawatt hour in 2010. We're now in 2015, and solar is down to 200 a megawatt hour.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal. That's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. The drop has been significant, and as we say, it's continuing to drop. I mean, you don't see a drop in the price of coal. You don't see a drop in the price of nuclear. You don't see a drop in the price of, well, maybe in gas there's a drop, all right, but it's not a sustained drop the way it's a sustained drop in wind and solar.
No, it's still still very prone to fluctuation. I think the who was it? It was I think it was Elon Musk during the week or at some point he said, we're existing on a trust fund.
Yes.
That's now buried under the ground, and at some point it's going to run out.
Yeah, we're going to have to go out and get a job, he said.
Yeah. So I thought it was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. But again, whenever you look at it, it's the International Energy Agency. These types of agencies, especially the pan-global ones, are masters in understatement. I mean, absolute masters in understatement. They will not put they won't put their head above the parapet unless they are absolutely defendable.
No, absolutely, you're right. I mean, we see it with the IPCC. Anything they say, you can be sure it's hugely conservative. But that's also, as you say, that's also the case with the International Energy Agency. They're an incredibly conservative organization. I was reading their reports 5 years ago, and they were writing off renewables. And now they're saying renewables are, they're winning the battle in cost versus fossil fuels. And for them to say that, I mean, it's definitely the case.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think Graham Robinson is joining us now. He says he's had a red wine or two. That's probably a good thing, Graham, really. If you want to be listening to the two of us, that's absolutely, that's highly recommended. In fact, for anyone who's watching the recording of the show, stop now, hit pause, go off and get a beer or a couple of bottles of wine and come back. It should be mandatory, I think.
I think it could be. I think we should.
Actually, hang on. I'm going to go off again.
Think about it, like we usually start with you with a latte and me with a cup of tea.
That's right. That's right.
I'm on caffeine restriction this week though.
Okay. And I had one earlier, so I'm good.
Fair enough. So
anyway, we'll continue to the next story.
Yeah.
And the next story I saw was, and again, we've touched on it before, it's about vertical farming.
Yes.
And Japan is building a fully automated indoor farm capable of producing 30,000 heads of lettuce per day.
Wow.
And it's pretty amazing. It really is.
Who eats that much lettuce?
That wouldn't be me.
Wouldn't be me either.
No. My daughter's vegetarian though, so there's a possibility that she'd help out.
Fair enough. No worries. But 30,000 heads of lettuce a day.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That is impressive.
They have a goal, you can see it here further down the article, of starting in summer 2017 with a goal of 500,000 heads of lettuce within 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's a huge ramp up that they're going from 30,000 a day to 500,000 within 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's really who's going to eat 500,000 heads of lettuce a day.
Well, yeah, fair enough. I do like the way they use the LED lighting, and I think that's a big part of it because
they would have to. And what they'll be doing there is they'll have light profiles, individual light profiles for each plant, and the light profiles they'll change the quality and the color of the light for each plant according to the stage of growth of the plant and according to the time of day as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things plants do is they control their own growth based on day length.
Yes.
So if you can control day length, you can trick a plant into thinking it's any time of year.
Yeah.
And of course, with LED lighting, that's very straightforward to do.
Exactly.
So what they're doing here is they're growing these plants indoors in pretty sterile conditions. So there's no need for pesticides or herbicides. There's no need for any of the transportation of these chemicals either, or even the production of these chemicals for them. So you've got a huge energy gain right there. They'll be produced indoors. So they're not using agricultural land, and because it's vertical farming, you can stack them multiple levels high. So it's incredibly dense per square foot of floor space compared to agricultural land again.
Are they hydroponics? It doesn't say what the growth medium is, whether it's soil or whether it's hydroponics.
Yeah, I suspect it's hydroponics or aquaponics. I'm not sure what the difference between the two is, but I suspect it's one of those two. And it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's incredibly efficient, and as I say, per square foot of floor space, massively efficient. So this, for me, is the very much the future of agriculture. Plant-based agriculture will tend to this way, which will free up land for return to biodiversity, hopefully. And also, I mean, there was a story this week that I think I skipped because we just had too many stories about the fact that they did a survey of the trees on the planet and came to the conclusion that there are 3 trillion trees on the planet, which is more than had been previously estimated. They previously estimated 400 million, but now, But what they did was they did a survey which combined satellite imagery with ground-based surveys.
Ah, yes.
And when you had the two coming together, then they had a more accurate survey. So the survey now says there's about 3 trillion trees on the planet, and we're losing something like an area the size of Portugal per annum in deforestation. But if a lot of that is for food production. If we can stop requiring that land for food production and return it to forestation, we can start sequestering carbon out of the atmosphere again.
Yeah.
So, things like this are incredibly important, and I think are the future of agriculture.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because especially here in the UK, and you're talking about biodiversity, one of the interesting things about the government cutbacks and things like that is that hedgerows and verges are not actually being cut either as often or as severely, which is actually leading to an increase in local wildlife because there are more wildflowers and the hedgerows are fuller. So it's actually having a very beneficial effect. And
I'm doing my bit on that front as well by not cutting the grass. My wife says it's innate laziness, but I say no, it's biodiversity, love. It really.
I can go with that. I might try it this weekend, but I don't think I'm going to get away with
it. We'll move on. We're shifting topics now away from biodiversity and that into code.
Yes, I shall share this.
There we go. That's the one. So Mozilla is updating its code editor, Thimble, to help teach web programming. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can take this one. So this one's actually really interesting because it's all done within the browser. So it is. So this is an update to the Thimble, which I think we talked about before, and it's all part of this big push to keep people, to help people to code and to help them sort of understand the world around them. It's always been one of these challenges that although people are using technology more, do they actually understand the technology and the frameworks and what actually sits underneath it? And direct it with it in a meaningful way. And one of the big problems, or one of the problems that people have had is, a lot of the tools that people use, things that we would be familiar with, things like Eclipse and that type of stuff, aren't massively user friendly to casual coders and things like that. So these types of tools actually are really, really good and allow people to be able to actually pick up these skills really, really easily. So
and they do lots of simple things. Just from reading the article, they do lots of simple things like importing websites,
yep.
And allowing you to. So if you have a website that you like, you can pull it in and see the code, which I know View Source will do for you, but you see it in an editor, in an actual editor, and it'll do things like auto completion and stuff like that as well, which is very handy for people who are not familiar with all the commands that they would require and the syntax of them. It does closing of tags and the whole thing as well. So it seems very nice.
Yeah, no, it is definitely, and it's Thimble has been updated since 2012. It's going through a number of revisions. So it is, and it is just really, really cool. So it is. And then that leads us on to the next one with our good friends on Facebook.
Indeed. So pull that up on screen there.
Got it.
Okay. Every time I open my mouth, it disappears off screen. I'm sorry about that. But this story is about Facebook helping educators to track students' progress. So what it is Facebook have teamed up with Summit Public Schools in California, and they're rebuilding a personalized learning plan software for monitoring students' efforts towards getting their long-term goals, blah, blah, blah. What it does is it tracks students' progress through school, and it seems to be a very nice platform which has been in place a while. And Facebook are helping out more, I think, on the funding of it than actually on the coding side of it, if I read the article correctly. And it's one of these ones, and we discussed this earlier, Chris. It's one of these ones where, we're a little dubious because it's Facebook, and we're giving them all our social information. Do we really want to be giving them all our educational information as well?
It's we talked about it, and we acknowledge that we've talked about Google in this space before, and one of the things about Google is that its educational efforts, its philanthropic efforts tend to be away from its advertising and its core business and search. This Facebook is based on your social graph. And this is information that fits within that very, very well. That's not to say Google doesn't have its own social graph. Of course it does. But at the same time, both Google and Facebook recognize their place within the world and their dependence on a highly educated workforce. So
indeed. And the software here does seem quite comprehensive. As I say, it seems to be Facebook are doing it in conjunction with this organization as opposed to Facebook doing it themselves. And it's very much built around personalized learning, which is very nice. I mean, that's great to see, because that's a hugely important method of doing education.
Yeah.
And Facebook are only doing it in this one small part of California. They're hoping to roll it out from there. Having said that, I mean, we talked about, as you said, about Google, and in the next story, the next story is around Google Classroom launching their Chrome extension.
There is one thing I do want to go back to. This informs teachers' daily feedback for each student. Okay, and there's one thing that keeps coming back to me within the context of business in the world that you and I work in and things like that there. And there's often a complaint by people that the youth of today are constantly requiring feedback, and it gets very, very wearing for people who are not used to having that type of feedback. You and I are given a task and we just go off and we do it, and we were expecting, we would get our feedback at some point. And I suppose this comes back to the change in HR processes and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's actually teaching children at a very, very young age to get constant feedback. That does, and that I actually like that idea. I like having constant feedback. Granted, not all feedback is feedback you want to hear, but at least it's constant. That's not to say I get constantly bad feedback. Jesus, no. But yeah, you know what I mean. feedback as minor checkpoints is always a good thing. It stops you going down that rabbit hole and just
yeah.
Getting it horrendously wrong. So this next one, I think is really cool, especially considering you and I. I've lost my mouse pointer. Oh, there it is. Considering you and I are big users of Slack, for example, I think this is awesome.
It is. I mean, what it is as I mentioned earlier, Google Classroom are launching a Chrome extension, so teachers can instantly share links with the entire class. So it's a very nice way within the browser to just press a button, and everyone as a teacher, everyone in your class, and you don't have to be in the class at the time.
Yeah,
gets access to a link, an article that you think is interesting or whatever, or it could be a new assignment or whatever. So that is just in itself is a very nice, very handy to have bit of functionality.
Oh God!
But the other thing is, we're talking about Facebook and the fact that Facebook has, a tiny section of a tiny part of the Californian education market that they're just starting to break into. Google is huge in education now. It's come from almost nowhere a couple of years ago to now having lots of schools using Google Classroom. I know it's being used here in Spain. I know it's being used in the US. I know it's being used lots of places. They have a lot of tools in place for teachers that are really good, really useful.
Yep.
And what that does is it gets the kids to get a Gmail account. And it might not be their primary account, but they then have a Gmail account, and they start using the system because it's sending them assignments and things like that, using it. So it's a nice in for Google. It's free, and it's free of advertising. There's no advertising on Google Classroom as well. So it's a win-win, I think, all around.
But Microsoft do the same thing. The Microsoft Education Platform is exactly the same. Google and Microsoft have been competing in this space for a long, long time. So I even remember the Classroom 2000 initiative, which was in Northern Ireland, which was run as a joint project with Hewlett Packard and Microsoft. So the kids all got Microsoft addresses. It was all run using a massive multi-tenant shared infrastructure, all Microsoft apps hosted by HP.
Right.
So it was very, very interesting project in the 2000s.
I think the advantage Google have here in this is the kind of Microsoft stuff was app-based or app program-based. You had to have Microsoft Office or whatever, and you had to install it on your computer.
No, it was all terminal service. It was all Citrix based.
Sure.
So yeah.
Same idea though.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
So it's application client based, whereas this is browser based. And Google have had a lead in the browser based applications, the browser based Office applications, since 2006. I remember speaking to Microsoft about this and saying, look, guys, you need to pull your socks off because this is your space to lose.
Yeah.
So that's 9 years ago. And they're struggling. They're not struggling. They're fighting their way back now. And the latest incarnations of Office have reasonably good web apps built into them as well. So that they are clawing their way back. But yeah, for a while there, they were out of the market.
Yeah. It's interesting actually. I remember I was at the Cloud World Forum last year, and I spoke to Google and I spoke to Microsoft, and I have to be honest, Microsoft had the best end-to-end identity story between Microsoft and Google. I mean, they really, really did. Your Microsoft identity is...
I think we just lost Chris. Okay, it's a pity. He was in the middle of a really interesting statement there, it would have seemed. So we'll keep going without him. Hopefully he'll drop back in and finish that sentence. The next story I saw that I thought was interesting was this one. Hopefully people can see it, because there was complaints earlier about not being able to see my screen when I was sharing the screen. If you are not seeing this, or if you are seeing this, let me know on Twitter on the Tech for Good hashtag. This is about Android Wear. And Android Wear is the Android software for Chrome devices, be it Android phones or whatever. But that's Android. But Android Wear is now the smartphone software that Google have created for Android smartwatches. And it's been out about a year and a half at this point. And there'd always been rumors that there would be a version of Android Wear which would be compatible with the iPhone. And now, this week, for the first time, only a couple of days ago, Android Wear has been announced to be compatible with iOS. So they brought out the iOS compatible version. So you can have an app on your iOS device which shares information with your Android Wear device. So that's a huge move forward, because if you have an iOS phone, the only smartphone, up until now, the only smartphone that would work with your iOS device was an Apple phone. I mean, you could kludge it with, I have a Fitbit that kind of works with it. You could get the Basis as well, or the Pebble, but again, it was kludges. What's happening with the Android Wear one, though, is it's working really well now with iOS. You've got a native app built specifically for Android Wear, which works on iOS. It doesn't work as well on iOS as it does on Android, which is not surprising given the limitations of sharing on the limitations of access to the system on iOS. So it doesn't work as well on iOS as it does on Android, but still, it now means that if you have an iOS device, you can get Android watches and have them work with it. So that's good news. No sign of Chris coming back, so I'll plow on. The next story that I saw that I thought was interesting was sticking with the smartwatch kind of theme, was this one showing the new smart watches coming out of Motorola. They have Moto 360s, which are sleeker, smarter, more customizable, basically, blah, blah, blah. They do look quite well. They're thinner, they're faster, the battery life is longer. They have men's and women's sizes, so you can see the men's on the left here and women's on the right, slightly smaller watch face. They've got a lot of screens in them. Here we go. You can see that there's a sport version as well. This one here is a sport version. These three ones here are the sport version. They have a silicone case. They've got more scratch resistant, and they've got built-in GPS, which the other ones don't have. I see Chris coming back online, I think. So you can see the Moto 360 now working a lot better. It's also got a heart rate monitor built into the back as well. So if you're interested in that, it comes with it. So a lot of new features in this Moto 360. Chris, are you seeing my screen there?
No, but I've just shared, so I have. So you can see mine there.
Okay, so we're talking about the Moto 360. You were saying you've got a Moto 360, wasn't it, that you have?
Yes, I do actually. I have a Moto 360, and I'll just bring it up on screen here. So it's actually it's quite nice. So it is, but it's certainly quite chunky. So it is. So it's but in terms of functionality, it's pretty cool. So it is the Android Wear is quite good, and some of the apps are really, really good. I can get Twitter and phone calls and email and text messages and things through it. So yeah, very, very nice.
Okay, very good, very good. So there's new ones. When Apple came out with their watch earlier this year, I did think about it. There wasn't a decent iOS smartwatch available at the time, and if I wanted to go with an Android Wear device, I wouldn't be able to sync it with the phone. Now that's solved with the Android Wear being now available for iOS. That's handy. but I'm still hesitant to buy a smartwatch because, you know, your smartwatches are coming in around the €300 mark.
Yeah.
In or around, some lower, some higher, but in or around €300. And within 6 to 12 months, they'll be out of date. They'll be gone because there'll be the next version. I mean, we saw it with the Apple Watch has come out this year. But, you know, we absolutely know for sure that this time next year, there'll be an Apple Watch 2.
Yeah.
And we're seeing right now, we're looking at the Moto 360, and this is the latest update to the Moto 360. There'll be another update to the Moto 360 in 6 months.
Yeah. Well, you know, the difference with the phones is the fact that the phone, you know, the core bit of the phone doesn't really change, but you have contracts of phones, which means you can update every 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's what they want you to do. You know, the watches, the wearables are a off-contract purchase.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they are, and that's a big difference. You know, whenever you're looking at £500 for an Apple Watch, you know, what are you actually offsetting that against?
Yeah.
You know, and when you look at your Fitbit, your Charge HR, for example, you get your notifications through that. They're not as fully functional, but you don't miss your notifications. You know, quite often when I have this in my pocket, I can miss when it's on vibrate, or I miss notifications or whatever. Whereas when I have the 360 on, or, you know, the Fitbit, I always get a buzz, and I can check to see the notification if I want to do something about it.
Well, just a clarification there. The Fitbit is great. It gives me notifications of phone calls only. It doesn't give me notifications of text or emails or any of those other things.
Yeah.
And actually, that's fine. I prefer that, because if I was getting notifications of texts or emails or tweets or, you know, likes on my Facebook, whatever, my hand would just be buzzing constantly. And, the amount of steps it would think I'm taking per day would, you know, go up by orders of magnitude, I think, because of the amount of shaking my hand would be doing.
Yeah.
But that's fine, because, as you say, when my phone is in my pocket, there have been several times where my wrist has buzzed from a phone call, and my phone is always on silent, and it's always on vibrate.
Yeah.
But you feel the vibration more in your wrist than you do when it's in your front pocket.
Yeah.
So I've caught lots of calls recently on my phone that I would have missed because I've been wearing the Fitbit. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
The next story, and we're moving slightly away from mobile communication at this point, but we're sticking with the kind of IoT space, because the next story is around Philips lights, and it's
you're suffering the same problem again here, I'll share.
Okay.
You're still suffering. They are from blank screen.
Alrighty. So I maybe that's because I have it open in Safari, and I don't know why.
I think it probably is actually, Tom. It's not Chrome.
Yeah.
That could be the issue. Do you want to try it in Chrome and see if you can?
Yeah, I'll do that. The story we're talking about anyway, just while we're checking that, the story is around the Philips brought out last year a thing called the Philips, or maybe it was earlier this year, brought out a thing called the Philips Light Strip. And the Philips Light Strip was a strip of LED lights on an adhesive backing.
Mm.
And what they would do is they would you could stick the adhesive lights to, you know, under furniture or whatever, and if you did that, then the lights would come on in a strip wherever it was. It might be under furniture, it might be whatever. The thing was, it was a bit of a gimmick, and it being that bit of a gimmick, it meant that it didn't really take off that well. Consequently, I'm going to try to share it now.
Yep, you try.
See if that works. Is that any better?
No, I'm
No,
not
still
seeing it,
not.
but
Let me
yeah.
actually let me close this. So I was sharing the wrong one. that probably not helping. But they brought out a new version. Is the bottom line. So the new version is significantly better. And I'll ask
That's
again.
it. There we go.
So the issue is Safari. Okay, so sharing it in Chrome works.
Perfect.
So the new one is a much stronger light, and you can cut it into strips and buy extra strips to add on to it.
Yeah.
And so it fixes a lot of the problems of the old one. They've boosted the output of the bulbs to 1600 lumens, which is very good, which is much better than the 120 lumens that was found in the original. So you can get 10-meter strips and get 2-meter extensions as well. So
that's
I mean, if you're getting 10-meter strips that you can cut up and get 2-meter extensions as well, and the bulbs, and there's lots of bulbs in them, the bulbs are 1600 lumens. I mean, what's happening there is you're getting a whole different type of lighting suddenly becoming available to you.
Yeah, well, the whenever you look at it, what was it? So 1600 lumens is 100-watt incandescent bulb, I think.
It's more.
It's more. Cool. But the temperature of the light, as we said before, the previous version suffered from the fact it couldn't do white, which is something like 2000 Kelvin.
Yeah, depending, it's a little higher. The incandescent light is around 2700 Kelvin, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but daylight is 6500, because I've been looking at daylight bulbs for in the bedroom.
Right.
So those are 6500, but this will do the 2000 to 6500 spread, which means it's actually, you could put them in your kitchen. My kitchen is horrific for daylight, and I actually have LED lights underneath the cabinets, but they're very, very blue. They're the IKEA ones that came out about 5 years ago.
Yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah, it's all right, but it's certainly
clinical. It's clinical white.
Yes, it is. It is. So yeah, but these actually, I'm actually quite excited about these. I might go and geek out and get some.
Yeah, I've got the same problem. They're not cheap. That's the saving grace. They're not cheap.
Well, no, you see, we it's an investment, Tom. We can't as bastions of tech for good, we have to take one for the team and buy these things to try them out for our loyal listeners. The only thing is they're strips, so you have to mount them either on top of cupboards or under cupboards or on baseboards.
What's cool about that is that you can do away with the traditional light fitting.
Yes.
So suddenly, I mean, you can see on the Philips site, and I don't have it handy, but you can see on the Philips site for it. And I should say, actually, these new strips are not coming out until October. So you can't go and buy them today.
Yeah.
If you try and buy them today, you'll end up getting the old ones that are 120 lumens, and you'll be really annoyed.
Yeah.
So no, but they're coming out in October, the new ones, and I mean, if we're after moving into this house in April this year, the end of April, and it's the house hadn't been lived in for decades. It needed a huge refurbishment, which we've done, but there are no light fittings in the house.
Mm.
Anywhere where there should be a light, there's a cable coming out of the ceiling and a bulb stuck into the cable.
Yeah,
it looks nasty, but it's functional, and we've had so many things to do since we moved in that it's low on the list of priorities. It's moving up the list of priorities as we whittle them off.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, maybe in a couple of the rooms, we might just kind of do away with the traditional light fitting and do something like this.
Yeah. I think it would be pretty cool, actually.
It'd be interesting to try anyway, if nothing else. What I'm curious about is how to get the power to the strips. I'm not entirely clear on that, because they say you can cut the strips, and that's fine. You cut a strip, so maybe you have an 8-meter strip and you cut it into, you cut off 6 meters, so now you have a 2-meter strip.
Yeah,
it's still a significant strip. You got a 2-meter strip. You put that up. What happens to the other 6 meters?
Yeah.
How do you power that?
with the with the IKEA one, if you cut it correctly, it actually there's connections like a USB connection. So it's you have the power source, and then you just slot it into the housing.
You have to buy a secondary power source for the new.
Yeah, you would. So if you cut one, you'd need a secondary power source to power those.
Yeah.
Which would be that in itself probably it obviously catches it has some additional charge to it, but as long as you cut them correctly, you can basically just put them together like a USB, and the copper contacts come into contact, and then because it's such a low ampage going through it, because they're LEDs.
Yeah, it's straightforward enough. I figured it was something like that, but they don't say it explicitly anywhere that I could find. So that'll be a nice, interesting project for October.
Absolutely.
We'll move on because we're sticking with IoT for the moment. And the next story I saw is around Nest. And hopefully everyone can see this because I have it open in a Chrome window now. And Chrome hasn't been causing problems apparently. So are you seeing it, Chris? Yeah?
No. I'm sorry, Tom. I can't see it. Have you shared it? Are you sure it's Chrome and not Safari, or did you close Safari?
I have it in a Chrome window. I'm positive. Says it's sharing, but apparently not. Oh dear. Okay.
We're having technology issues this week.
Where?
Here we go. I've got that shared now.
All right. So basically, it's a new Nest thermostat, and we've talked about the Nest thermostat many times on the show.
Oh, yes.
They've done a refresh to the line. Basically, they've brought out their 3rd generation Nest thermostat, and if you flash it up there on screen, Chris, I'll shut up for a sec.
Yeah, I've got it here, so you can see the update. So it's now got more things around the outside, which I don't think it had before.
Correct.
Before it was predominantly just the temperature and a couple of other KPIs that are in there. But now it seems to have additional functions like aircon, calendar settings, and timer. So it's definitely it does look. I'm gonna say it's 40% bigger, better display, and it has a new feature called Farsight.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's with any of these things, we're constantly seeing improvements to the technologies. We'll have the 4th generation Nest come out in another 12 months and so on. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to go, when is it time to jump in?
I think if you're always waiting for the next iteration or the next biggest thing, you're never ever going to jump in. So,
yeah.
You just gotta take it on the chin and do it. The interesting thing is, whenever you saw the British Gas version, that's the
Hive. Yeah.
So I think its release cycle is once every 2 years or something like that. I think because we had the Hive 1, and then we now have the Hive 2 recently released. So it is so, but this is the 3rd generation. This is the 3rd iteration in 4 years for Nest. So it is. But it's one of those ones. I would love to get a Nest, but I just don't. I've gone through the website and all the rest of it. I don't have a thermostat in my home. Obviously, I have a thermostat on my boiler.
Yeah.
So how do I actually link that back to the Nest? Has always been sort of my question.
Yeah, I've no idea. And we've 2 thermostats. So we have 2 zones in the house, with 2 separate thermostats for aircon and for heating. So if I bought a Nest, I'd have to buy 2. So it's one of those things again where I'm going, will I, won't I, and I'm not inclined to make that jump.
Yeah.
It's not really compelling enough to make the jump just yet. So I'm inclined to hang tough for now. What's interesting as well is that Google have gone into this whole space, and they're turning the Nest into an entire platform. So they have the drop cam cameras, the smoke detectors, the Nest thermostats. Doubtless they'll be making more acquisitions in the space. They're all talking to each other as well. But if you look at the next story that comes up,
Well,
the smart things one.
yeah, the smart things. Well, the interesting thing is that every idea that's succeeded over the last wee while has always opened itself up as a, no, I still can't say it, man.
Okay.
I'll share. Has opened up a platform, has opened up an API, has opened up the capability for people to do interesting things. So that's yeah. When you do that, then that's when people flock to your platform.
Correct. And one of the cool things about smart things is, despite it being owned by Samsung, I think Samsung bought them for something like 200 million earlier this year.
Yeah.
Despite it being owned by Samsung, it's a very open platform. It started off as being open source with a load of open APIs, and they've continued that down along. And as a consequence of that, there's more than 200 devices which can now talk to the Smart Things hub. So you've got this little hub here with the little blue, the guy with the little blue lights there in the picture,
in the middle.
And that can talk to up to 200 devices around the house. And you get lists of them on the Smart Things site. You get recipes for interacting with them, all kinds of interesting things. They've also released an app. Or sorry, they've always had an app. They've upgraded the app. They have a new version of the app out now, and that allows you to divide your house up room by room to see who's in any particular room, to interact with any devices in that room, to create lots of different things. Like you can say good morning to it, and suddenly it turns on your coffee machine. It switches up the lights. It turns on the heating, and a whole lot of other preset things. And similarly, you can go the other direction, say good night, and it turns down the lights, or goodbye, I'm off to work. And you just give it a couple of commands and it shuts everything down, or it starts everything up, or it goes into preset modes, or whatever you've programmed it to do.
It's like Jarvis,
something like that. But because it can talk to 200 different devices, you're not just stuck talking to your, if it was a Nest only, you're not stuck just talking to your thermostat and your smoke detector. You can talk to your camera, you can talk to your door locks, you can talk to your heating system, you can talk to any number of things you have around the house. And for anyone who's a bit unsure, on this page there are 2 extremely good videos which show what you can do with it. The second video is called an overview of the new Smart Things app. And that's the better of the 2 videos, because it really gives you a good intro into what the app can do, the kinds of things it can do for you. So if anyone's interested, it's well worth checking out.
Well, even like I'm looking at the cost here, and it's actually the $99 for the hub.
Yeah.
Is a really nice price point, and then you can layer stuff over the top of it. And I have to be honest, I actually prefer that over the Nest stuff.
Yeah.
So we've talked before, just about your privacy and things like that. I do like the more open approach. The question I would have again is, and we've talked about this many times, is actually around just the general security of the platform.
Yeah.
And the devices. For some reason, and I have no idea why, but people just seem to have this blind spot about security of IoT devices.
What's good about Smart Things is that they're working with GitHub as well, posting code there.
Yes.
So that if I'm not sure how much they've posted there, because they've only just started. But the fact that they're doing that means that the code should be that bit more secure, because it's open to analysis by anyone.
Yes, exactly.
And they also work with Nest as well. So any Nest devices you have can be controlled from the Smart Things hub and the app on the phone. So no, it's all good. It's all good stuff. And speaking of open source, the next story that we had lined up is around Firefox. And Firefox for iOS is now available for preview if you live in New Zealand.
Oh. Oh.
So it was like, yay! Oh.
Exactly. Very much so. Very much so.
But but it's good. I mean, okay, it's just New Zealand for now, but it means that we're almost there for anyone with an iOS device who wants an alternative browser. I have Chrome and I have Safari on my iOS phone, but as soon as Firefox comes out for the phone, I will be downloading that as well, because it's you can never have enough browsers.
Well, Firefox have done a phenomenal job of de-bloating and performance enhancing their browser.
Yeah.
Like next to Opera, which is and Edge. Opera is widely acknowledged to be one of the fastest browsers out there, and it's consistently held that. Edge, the new Microsoft browser that was codenamed Spartan, is really, really fast, but it's fast because it loses a lot of functionality. Firefox have done a brilliant job of getting their mojo back.
True.
So they have really, really good, and they still have a really vibrant developer community for extensions.
Yeah, it's true. And one of the cool things about this, one of the reasons that it'll be hugely important, is you'll be able to share the tabs you have on your desktop or your laptop with your mobile device. So, and your bookmarks and all the rest of the stuff, any of your logins, all that kind of stuff will be shared across devices. So, that's massively important.
I wonder where that's held, because I can do it across my Chrome devices because I sign in to Chrome using my Gmail account. And
same idea with this. You sign into a Firefox account.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fabulous.
And it's working right now across devices that just don't have a mobile client. So if I have tabs open in Firefox on my desktop, I can then see those on my laptop. So it's very handy. Now, we mentioned Chrome, and the next story, I think I might have got the order wrong, but the next story that we should be talking about is how Chrome's latest update has emphasized speed and lower memory usage. So this will be Chrome version 45.
Mm-hmm.
And basically... Sorry?
I'm just bringing that up now.
Super. Sorry for going out of order, but...
No, you're all right.
It makes sense to bring that up now. Basically, Chrome version 45, the latest one, it's only out the last day or two. So if you use Chrome, you might want to check that you have the latest version, and if not, click update. So Chrome has been getting more and more bloated over the last year, 2 years. How far back do you want to
go? Definitely the last 2 years. Getting very, very bloated. So that has
So apparently this new version 45, fixes a lot of that. So yeah, I downloaded it today and it stopped my screen sharing, apparently. But other than that, it's really good.
Yeah. Well, so some of the stats, so the browser is down from 225 meg down to 167, and the GPU process is down from 88 meg to 55 or 54, which is, that's, now the CPU run is slightly higher, but having said that, it's definitely, it is a vast improvement. So there's some nice little videos here.
Yeah. So we'll plow on because we've hit the top of the hour and we still have a couple of stories left.
Yeah.
The next one is around Uber.
Oh yes, my company I love to hate.
Exactly, and there's a new competitor in the market, and basically this is interesting because this company is based in New York, and they've got half of the New York taxis signed up to their application just by virtue of the fact that they are the company that manages the payments for taxis and does the metering for taxis and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're talking to the other half of taxis in New York. So they want to get all the taxis in New York on their system, and then they'll start expanding from there. They say that, the advantage that they have over Uber is there's more of them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how true that is. I'm not sure what the numbers actually are for Uber registered drivers in New York versus taxis. But they say there's more of them around. They say they don't do surge pricing as well. So at times they will be cheaper.
Yeah.
And they also have payments built in. So similar to Uber, you'll be able to see where the taxi is. You'll get notified the taxi number, the driver, and you won't have to whip out your cash. You can pay, well, the payment will be built into just having the app.
Yeah.
So it looks quite nice. The problem it has versus Uber is it's going to take a long time for it to roll out nationwide across the US, never mind globally the way Uber is doing.
Yeah. I remember an app, Halo, in London. It's still running, actually. And
it is, yeah.
It worked really, really well with the black cabs. And then Halo wanted to expand and take on private hire, and basically the black cabs threw it out. And it meant that there was a gap in the market there, which Uber just slotted right into. Nice. And started killing the black cabs. But the three things I think that Uber have is the ability to pay on your mobile device. And as people who travel, I hate carrying large amounts of money around with me to pay for taxis.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is the ability to have drivers, the number of drivers that they have, and not having to wait a horrific amount of time for a cab.
Yep.
And knowing when your cab's going to arrive is another big thing. And then just how seamless they've actually made the service. I haven't had a complaint about a driver that I've had with Uber. They've all been very, very friendly, very nice. That's not to say I've had normal black cabs or other drivers aren't friendly, but I've never had a problem with Uber. So once you take all those things into account, that's really addressing each of those things is the only way you're going to compete with Uber. So it is the price. I'm coming to and from Heathrow, so I am. So I'm automatically hitting an airport surcharge.
Right.
So I am, but when I'm in London and going around London, they're so much cheaper. If they're just using this app to go for better customer service and things like that, that's one thing.
How do you manage that in Heathrow? I'm curious. When I land in Heathrow, I typically just get the Heathrow Express into Paddington.
Yeah.
And then take tube from there to wherever.
Well, if I'm taking an Uber, I'm going to Chiswick Park. If I'm going into London, I would never, ever, ever take a taxi.
Yeah.
It's just the fact I'm going to Chiswick Park, I'm going into the office, and it makes more sense for me to get an Uber.
So what, you come out of departures and you just fire up the Uber app and say, I'm at departures, arrivals, I'm at arrivals in Heathrow, and they come along in a car and pick you up?
Yep, within 10 minutes, I think is the longest I've ever waited. Whereas if I'm ringing a PSV, it's that I haven't booked.
Yeah.
It's the guts of half an hour. Wow. So that is, I'm waiting. It's about a comparable price actually in and around Heathrow. So it is, but it's that ability just to fire up the app. I'm here, I'm now, I'm ready, go, and it's about £5 cheaper. So it is, and that's what makes the difference for me. I would rarely take an Uber in the morning when I'm going into London. So just because the traffic is so bad, so the surge pricing never really affects me. I'd rather get the tube. Sure. And then when I do get an Uber, it is vastly cheaper than a black cab.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I've done it around London. I just hadn't done it out of Heathrow at any time.
Yeah.
So that's handy to know.
Yeah.
I'm flying to LA next week. So on Sunday. So Sunday week, I'm flying to LA. I'm going to have to see about whether it's possible to get an Uber out of LAX to.
I think actually Lyft is probably going to be a better thing for you out of LAX.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You could try Lyft.
Okay.
And see how that goes. Yeah. Ask around on our West Coast contacts.
Will do.
Lyft is pretty cool, especially when you're coming to and from an airport, because I think LAX may still have the restriction that you can't pick up. They can drop off, but they can't pick up. Certain of the American airports still have that restriction.
Yeah, McCarran as well, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Anywho, 3 stories left. The third last one is on Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Mozilla, and others partnering to create a next generation video format.
Oh, shit.
It's a good thing. Because what they're doing is they're calling themselves the Alliance for Open Media. They've
Yeah.
created a new open source alliance, the Alliance for Open Media, and they want to develop the next generation of royalty-free video formats, codecs, and other related technologies. So it's all around defeating not just DRM, but most of the video formats that are out there right now have some form of licensing around them.
Yeah.
And that's problematic. No one is really enforcing the licensing, but they could do.
Yeah.
And that would be a huge problem if they did. Whereas if they come up with a new open source licensing free, royalty free video format, then all that problem goes away.
No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. And I have to admit, my initial skepticism is the fact that, is based on the fact that a lot of these plays are to get the license and to get the technology used. And if it's going to be royalty free, and I'm not that concerned about the DRM thing is important for openness and all the rest of it. The lack of DRM, but at the same time, people have to pay to create the content, and DRM is a way of recouping that. Yeah, you look at the iPlayer. BBC iPlayer, for example, has DRM built into it, but it's the iPlayer is still a free and open. You can use the iPlayer from anywhere in the world and get free content, so you can, but it still has DRM built into it. So DRM in itself is not always a bad thing.
Sure.
But
I thought the iPlayer was geo-locked, so you couldn't use it from anywhere in the world.
Well, no. So you can get stuff from BBC Worldwide, I think, on the iPlayer, but there's certain stuff that you can't get. So it's the DRM functions at the geo-lock happens at the iPlayer app level, not at the DRM level.
Okay.
So the DRM actually means that when you download content, it will expire after 30 days. So I can download a whole load of an entire season of whatever, and after 30 days it'll expire and I can't play it anymore. And that's fair enough, but I can download it whenever I want. So I can download something on the iPad, take it away to Vegas for a week, and watch it there, and not incur the geo fencing issue.
Must be nice to have an iPad.
I have two actually, but anyway.
I remember the days.
I know, but you gave it up to a worthy cause. A worthy cause. It's interesting that one of my favorite video formats is MKV. I think it's a fantastic format, and it's open. It's an open format.
Yeah.
So it's really, really nice and preserves a lot of the quality. But obviously this is aimed at 4K and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah. True. Second last story, Skylake.
Ah, a nice segue into 4K there.
Yeah, exactly. So Skylake is the new processor family coming out of Intel. Yes. 14 nanometer. They're supposed to be a lot more power efficient. They're faster, obviously, and they're not going to start making slower chips. They're faster, they're more power efficient, and they can even drive 3, as Chris said, 4K monitors. So, I mean, is there much to talk about in this, apart from what I've just said?
No, not really. It's one of those things. Is it the tick or talk or whatever of the of it, and it's just their new processor. It's not even out yet. They announced it, but they didn't have you can't go out and buy one yet, which is frustrating. But
I don't think they even have pricing yet.
No, probably not. There are some new features in there, but ultimately, it's just another processor. We'll see what they'll do with it.
I like the fact that it's more power efficient, and I know I wouldn't I? But with every iteration of the processors, they become more power efficient as well, which is, not alone do they get faster, but they always get more power efficient. So if you look at the power consumption of computers that are 10 years old versus ones from today, there's a huge difference in their power consumption. And of course, this has huge implications, not just for the power consumption of your desktop, but it also means the power consumption of your laptop is reduced, which gives you longer battery life. The same battery will last longer. So no, it's apart from the fact that you're consuming less power, you're getting longer battery life for your laptop, which is something everybody wants.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Last story: MouthLab tricorder device analyzing vital signs in real time.
Yeah, this one's really cool.
And it's one of these ones. It's not. It looks cool. It will be cool. It's more a story about where medicine is going than where it is today, because part of the story they reference the Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize.
Yes.
And that's a prize that's been put up. It's part of the whole X Prize Foundation thing, where they choose something and they throw tens of millions in prize money for teams to go into competition to produce a device. And with the Tricorder Prize, what they've said is, here's 10 million as a prize. Here are the characteristics we want from the tricorder. It must be sub $1,000 is one of the criteria.
Yeah.
So that puts it directly in the consumer space. It must be able to do these number of different tests. I think blood pressure, blood oxygen.
I've got them here. It's breathing rate, blood pressure, temperature, ECG, and then pulse ox.
Yeah.
And then future is blood sugar, saliva biochemical, metabolic rate, and respiration biochemical analysis, whatever that means. But yeah.
So this one that we're talking about, the MouthLabs one, is one that's coming to fruition. It's not one that's in the Tricorder Prize, but the Tricorder Prize has 7 finalists chosen, and they're coming up towards an end date. So we will have, in the next few months, 7 more of these type devices coming to market. And the MouthLabs one isn't at market yet either. This is a soon to be. And what they're saying is, you'll breathe into the device, and because you're breathing into it, it'll do, as you said, the blood oxygen, ECG, temperature, blood pressure, etc. And they'll have more things to come after that. So the whole idea of the tricorder as a single device able to do a load of diagnostics for you, while it was a Star Trek thing at one time, in the next 12 months, it'll be the reality.
Well, look at the hypospray, for example, that uses a pressurized piece.
Yes.
There have been diabetic syringes that have been that can use that technology for a number of years.
Yes. Yeah.
So, well, any syringe generally, but my frame of reference is for diabetics. But yeah, so that's one that's been around for a while. So, but this is actually pretty cool. So it's really, really cool. And I know you said the sub 1,000 puts it in the sort of the consumer space, but it's, for me, actually, it's that disaster relief space that it really falls into so well as a diagnostic device.
You're right. The two things are important. The disaster relief is one, and the other one is people with young families.
Yes.
Your kid wakes up screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning. You whip this out. You find out, has your kid got an earache, or has your kid got meningitis, or whatever it is. Do you need to whip them to the hospital straight away, or just throw some codeine down their neck, or
codeine?
Drug them.
The stories I used to hear from colleagues and all the rest, that I will spare their blushes, but they would parroting is a great thing because it makes the kids drowsy. So when the kid wakes up in the middle of the night and they won't go back off to bed, a little dose of parroting and a warm a hot water bottle, and they're out in no time.
Really? Wish I'd known that.
I'll not cite my source.
our first kid didn't sleep a full night for 2 years. It was bloody hell.
Oh Jesus!
You know, yeah, it was tempting to get out some hot whiskey or something like that. And
Oh God, yeah. Well, Anna's not too bad. You know, she has her moments. Thankfully, she's very much a mummy's. Only mummy will soothe, and so I get a good night's sleep.
Well trained.
Exactly. It was poking her when she was, you know,
flicking her ear as she's going off to sleep. Yeah.
The only thing is, I have to do the early mornings then. So, and I'm not a morning person. I'm really not a morning person.
I am. That doesn't bother me. It's middle of the night. I'm not so happy.
Oh God, yeah, no. I asked my dad if I had turned him into a morning person. He said no. He was always a morning person. I was like, damn. All that time spent wasted. So
wrecking the place.
Exactly. So there we go. I think we're through everything this week.
That's it. Yeah, that's the last story. So that's it for this week. So thanks everyone for your time and interest, and we'll be back this time next week. Usual same back time, same back channel, and we shall see you all then.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.